Imagine this. A cold Thursday morning in Brooklyn. The sound of rain hitting rusted fire escapes. The smell of fried plantains drifting from a neighbor's window. And then a loud knock. Not the friendly knock of a neighbor. Not the casual rap of a delivery driver. But the pounding, arrogant knock of a man who thinks he owns everything on this block. The door creaks open. And standing there is Mr. Harold Brighton, the landlord. His voice is sharp. His words dripping with venom. Y'all need to be out by Friday. I don't care where you go. But you can't stay here. Inside the small 2-bedroom apartment, the Williams family stares in disbelief. A mother clutching her robe. A father still in work boots. Dust from the night shift clinging to his jeans. And their 2 kids, barely awake, still rubbing sleep from their eyes. This wasn't just a knock on their door. This was a knock on their life. But what Harold didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the family he was trying to throw out, they weren't tenants anymore. They were owners. The building itself stood like a relic of old Brooklyn. Peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, graffiti carved into mailboxes. But to the Williams family, it was more than just walls and bricks. It was home. They had lived here for nearly a decade. Through winters when the heat broke down and Harold ignored the calls. Through summers when rats roamed the halls like they paid rent. Neighbors whispered about Harold. How he treated tenants like disposable pieces on a chessboard. How he never fixed what was broken. How eviction notices always came faster than repairs. But still people stayed. Because in a city like New York, sometimes staying meant survival. And now, with rents skyrocketing, Harold saw his chance. Push the black families out. Renovate the units. Jack up the rent for newcomers who could pay double. It was his favorite game. But this time, he picked the wrong family. The Williams family was ordinary on the surface. But ordinary doesn't tell the whole story. Marcus Williams, the father, worked 12-hour shifts as a construction foreman. His hands were calloused, his back bent with years of heavy lifting. But his eyes carried a quiet fire. Denise Williams, the mother, juggled 2 jobs. Part-time nurse's aide, part-time home baker. She sold sweet potato pies to church members just to keep the lights on. Her laugh was warm, even when her days were hard. And the kids. Tiana, age 12, always reading under her blanket with a flashlight. Jaden, age 8, obsessed with drawing superheroes on scraps of paper. To outsiders, the Williams family was struggling. But inside these walls, they built resilience like armor. They built dignity brick by brick. What no one knew was that Marcus had a plan. 4 years, he saved every dollar he could. Every overtime shift. Every pie Denise sold. Not for a car. Not for a vacation. But for something greater. Ownership. But Harold didn't see that. All he saw was a family he thought he could push around. That morning, when he handed them the crumpled eviction notice, his smirk said everything. You don't belong here. People like you never do. Marcus stood silent. Denise's heart raced. The kids clutched her robe tighter. Neighbors peeked through cracked doors. Whispers echoed down the hallway. This wasn't the first family Harold tried to evict. But the Williams family's response would make it the last time he ever underestimated them. Friday came, and Harold stormed back into the building, ready to throw his weight around. But when he reached apartment 3B, the door wasn't locked in fear. It was wide open. Inside, Marcus sat calmly at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of him. Denise beside him, hands folded. Harold's voice boomed. I said out. You got no rights here. I'll have the sheriff drag you out myself. Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he slid a folder across the table. Deeds. Signatures. Official stamps. Marcus's voice was calm, steady, and heavy with power. Actually, Mr. Brighton, we own this building now. Harold froze. His face drained of color. The words hit him harder than a punch. For months, while Harold schemed to push them out, Marcus had been quietly working with a local housing nonprofit, pooling savings, applying for grants, securing a low-interest community loan. And just 1 week before, the Williams family closed on the building. The same building Harold thought was his kingdom. Now he was standing inside their home. Harold's voice cracked, trying to mask his fear. This can't be right. This is my property. Marcus leaned forward, eyes locked on him. Not anymore. The neighbors who had gathered in the hallway erupted into cheers. Some clapped. Some cried. Because this wasn't just victory for one family. It was justice for everyone Harold had mistreated. For the first time in years, the halls felt alive with hope. But Harold wasn't finished. His pride couldn't accept defeat. He shouted threats of lawsuits. He swore he'd find a loophole. He tried to intimidate with lawyers and paperwork. But every document, every stamp, every signature was airtight. The Williams family had turned the tables completely. The man who once had all the power was powerless. But here's the twist. Owning the building didn't end the struggle. It only began a new one. Because with ownership came responsibility, repairs, bills, maintenance, and the scars Harold left behind from years of neglect and abuse wouldn't vanish overnight. The Williams family wasn't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for every tenant in that building, to prove that dignity could stand where arrogance once ruled. And Harold, he didn't walk away quietly. Rumors spread he was plotting in the shadows, calling in favors, looking for ways to sabotage the new owners. The question lingered. Would the Williams family's victory hold strong? Or would Harold find a way to strike back? This story isn't just about eviction papers or property deeds. It's about power. It's about dignity. And it's about the resilience of a family who refused to be erased. Because sometimes, in the very buildings where people try to silence you, you rise, you reclaim, you own. And the lesson: never underestimate the quiet strength of those who've been pushed down. Because one day, the same people you tried to evict may hold the keys to your kingdom. The news spread fast. By Monday morning, everyone in the building knew the truth. The Williams family weren't just tenants anymore. They were the landlords. But instead of celebration, a heavy silence hung in the halls. Light bulbs still flickered. Roaches still crawled across cracked tiles. The stench of broken pipes still lingered. Owning the building felt less like victory, and more like inheriting a battlefield. Marcus stared at the mounting bills on the kitchen table. Denise stared at the leaking ceiling above the kids' room. And the neighbors? They stared at the Williams family with desperate hope. Because now, every broken lock, every unpaid repair, was their problem to fix. And Harold, he wasn't gone. Not yet. 2 weeks later, a strange car started parking across the street. A black sedan with tinted windows. Engine humming, headlights dimmed. Inside, Harold sat with a notebook, scribbling. Every tenant who came and went. Every delivery truck. Every repair worker Marcus called. Neighbors whispered. He's watching them. But Harold wasn't just watching. He was plotting. And then, the letters started coming. Legal threats. Unlawful transfer of property. Pending litigation. Marcus and Denise opened envelope after envelope, their hands shaking, their stomachs sinking. It was clear. Harold wasn't letting go. Denise felt the weight first. She was used to being strong for her family. But now, the calls from tenants came at all hours. Miss Denise, the heat's out again. Miss Denise, my ceiling is leaking. Miss Denise, when will this get fixed? She wanted to say soon. But the truth? Money was tight. Marcus worked overtime, but every dollar vanished into repairs. The kids missed his presence at the dinner table. And Denise, she carried the guilt like a stone in her chest. She had dreamed of ownership as freedom, but it felt like chains. And yet, she refused to break. Then came the night of the blackout. The building's power cut out all at once. Darkness swallowed the halls. Children cried. Elderly neighbors stumbled with flashlights. Marcus rushed to the basement. The breaker box was slashed. Wires ripped out, circuits destroyed. It wasn't an accident. It was sabotage, and everyone knew who was behind it. But when Marcus went to the police, they shrugged. You can't prove it was him. For the second time, the Williams family was forced to face Harold's shadow alone. But Harold underestimated something again. Community. When the blackout dragged into a second day, neighbors didn't complain. They rallied. Men from the third floor helped Marcus rewire circuits. Teenagers held flashlights while Denise boiled water for everyone. Elders prayed in the hallway, singing hymns that echoed through the darkness. What Harold intended as fear turned into unity. And in that unity, the Williams family found strength. Because for the first time, this wasn't just about their family. It was about everyone in the building. Weeks later, the Williams family got an envelope that looked different. Inside wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Anonymous. Typed. No return address. It read, "He's trying to sell the building behind your back. Watch your lawyer. Not everyone's on your side." Denise's hands trembled as she read it aloud. Marcus's jaw clenched. If it was true, Harold wasn't just sabotaging them from the shadows. He was still trying to take back what he lost, by any means necessary. The question now wasn't whether Harold would strike again. It was when. And worse, how close was his reach? Because if their own lawyer couldn't be trusted, who could? The Williams family stood on the edge of another storm. One that wasn't just about property or pride, but betrayal from the inside. And the haunting thought lingered. Had they really won anything at all? Or had they simply stepped into Harold's trap? Owning a building is one thing. Keeping it is another battle entirely. Because when you rise, those who built their power on your silence will do anything to drag you back down. But resilience isn't just surviving the first attack. It's bracing for the next. And for the Williams family, the real war was just beginning.